All right, guys. BTK All Tied Up Part 2. Dennis Rader, the all-American family man, devoted father, God-fearing Christian, city compliance officer, Boy Scout troop leader, and oh yeah, sex-craving, bondage-savoring, narcissistic psychopath who refers to his own penis as Sparky Big Time. How much worse can this story really get? Listen in on Talk Murder to Me. Well, thanks, Alicia and Jonathan. We're sorry, Jonathan, that we did not mention you in the initial request. We know it was a couple's request. And I know at least one of our tacos said that they thought BTK was the dumbest serial killer out there.
Yeah, he's pretty stupid.
I mean, I'm not impressed so far.
Oh, you're about to be very not impressed here in a second.
Well, I mean, like, he shot a guy in the face and he didn't die. And the first time he thought he strangled those people and they didn't die at first.
Like, his first murder, he was targeted to very specific members of the family, didn't realize, like, that the dad was home.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunately another casualty, someone who died tragically who wasn't even the intent.
Right.
And I mean, he had to make it work.
They're all tragedies.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so Dennis Rader, a college student, ex-Air Force. He was an ADT alarm salesman. He got let go from that job. He became a compliance officer, and he was a real stickler. He was a real stickler for giving tickets for, oh, your grass is an inch too high or whatever. There's a lot
he would totally write us up if he was an RHOA.
There's a lot of stories out there where people got tickets from him for their dogs being loose or whatever. I mean, he was a real jackass. He called his penis Sparky. And I think someone said this on the forum. They said SBT. Do you guys want to take a guess what SBT?
Small but thick.
So,
Ew! Oh my God!
Gross. What the fuck?
I don't know. I thought we were making penis jokes.
Is that what it stands for?
No. So here, read this, Nicole. This will tell you what he means by SBT. So Dennis Rader has acronyms for freaking everything. So that's another thing. Like, who uses acronyms all the time?
Oh, that's a military thing.
Military, but also like law enforcement. So
yeah. He thought of the girl with long dark hair and glasses. She looked like she was made for SBT, his abbreviation for Sparky Big Time.
Ew, I like my idea better. That's
Sparky Big Time.
Oh, that's cringeworthy.
Holy shit.
Gross.
Now, he also began to document everything he did, and he began to send letters to the media, and then he started signing the documents, BTK, bind, torture, kill. So this guy definitely wanted fame. All right, this is from a 1974 letter that he had sent to the media.
You don't understand these things because you're not under the influence of Factor X.
Factor X is what is like the mojo of killing.
The X Factor?
The X Factor, yeah.
He says it weird. The factor of Factor X. Like, just call it the X Factor, dude. The same thing that made Son of Sam, Jack the Ripper, Havery, Glatman, Boston Strangler, Dr. H.H. Holmes, Pantyhose Strangler of Florida, Hillside Strangler, Ted of the West Coast, and many more infamous character kill, which seems senseless, but we cannot help it. There is no help, no cure, except death or being caught and put away. How about some name for me? It's time. 7 down and many more to go. I like the following. How about you? The BTK Strangler, the Wichita Strangler, Poetic Strangler, the Bondage Strangler.
Oh, haha. Bondage.
This right here is one of his letters. This is from the Salina Journal in Kansas, Sunday, February 12th, 1978.
The letter to KAKE TV, postmarked Thursday from Wichita, was received at the station Friday morning and police were notified. The letter began with the question, how many do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention? BTK indicated that he had written to the local newspaper after his 6th murder, but nothing was printed and wrote that one little paragraph would have been enough.
That's similar to Zodiac, I think. I don't know too much about it, but...
The FBI profile really quick, kind of before we get started with the full story. This was in October 1984. Roy Hazelwood, which is an FBI profiler, listed BTK as having some of the following traits. He practiced bondage in everyday life. He was a sexual sadist, a control freak, and could interact with others on a superficial level. Quote, you know him, but you really don't know him. He also said that he does well at his job, whatever job he has. And he doesn't like others telling him what to do. Quote, he would love to drive. People would associate him with driving.
Interesting.
All right, we're going to March 17th, 1977, 1207 South Greenwood Street. The target in this one, her name is Cheryl. And the project for this date, March 17th, 1977, is Project Blackout.
Ooh.
Now, she's a college girl, and she lived with other college roommates. So he was going to go in there and most likely confront more than one female. He's very brazen with this stuff.
I think it's interesting, too, that both the projects we've talked about have to do with power. Like the first one was Project Lights Out, and this one's Project Blackout.
Well,
Interesting.
It doesn't really have any correlation because Blackout is actually the bar that he was stalking Cheryl at. She would drink at this bar called Blackout.
Weird.
And then he would go in there and basically stalk her. And then a few weeks later, he picked the date, March 17th, and he went to the door. He was going to knock, and he had a ruse. He was going to pretend to be drunk or something along the lines and say, oops, wrong apartment, and then kind of force his way in.
I was wondering if it had to do with like blackout, lights out, death. Like he was going to kill them.
No, it's just, I mean,
that's a really weird coincidence.
Blackout is also a good analogy for drunk.
Yes.
It's a good thought, but it's definitely the bar.
That's a weird coincidence.
Yeah, maybe. He knocks on the door, but guess what? No one's home. I'm not going to go into Cheryl's background because she wasn't home, and that's the last time she's in the story. He actually walks 2 doors down and knocks on another door, 1311 South Hydraulic Street, a woman with 3 kids. Shirley Vian. She's a woman with 3 kids, and guess what? The entire family has the flu. But he doesn't care. He goes in there anyway, and this is how he does it. The son of Shirley Vian, Stephen, age 6, goes to the Dillon's grocery store to buy soup because, like I said, the entire family has a horrible case of the flu.
The same Dillon's grocery store that he left the car from the last family?
Yeah, the same one. Dennis Rader actually stops the boy coming back from the grocery store, and he shows a photo of a little boy. Now, Dennis Rader has a briefcase with him. And he's wearing an overcoat. And he pretends to be a detective. And he says, I'm a detective. Have you seen this little boy? And he shows them a picture of a boy. And the boy's like, no, I haven't seen him. So he goes on his way. Now read this. This is from BTK's daughter, her account.
In March 1977, Dad, carrying a briefcase and posing as a detective, showed a picture of my mom and my 1-year-old brother to a little boy, asking if he had seen the boy in the picture, then followed him home. Dad knocked on the little boy's door, spoke to his mother, Shirley Vian, Reelford, then forced his way into their house, murdered her after locking her 3 screaming children in the bathroom.
So the fucked up thing, well, there's a lot of fucked up things with that statement.
Yeah.
But number one, the picture that he showed the boy as a cover was of his own son.
What?
Henry County, Kansas, that you unlawfully killed Shirley Vian maliciously, willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation by strangulation, inflicting injuries from which she did die on March 17, 1977. Can you tell me what you did on that day?
As before, Vian was actually on that one, she was completely random. There was actually someone across from Dillon's was a potential target. It was called Project Green, I think. I had project numbers assigned to it. And that particular day, I drove to Dillon's, parked in the parking lot, watched this particular residence, and then got out of the car and walked over to it. It's probably the police report, the address. I don't remember the address now. Knocked, nobody answered it. So So I was all keyed up, so I just started going through the neighborhood. I'd been into the neighborhood before. I kind of knew a little of the layout of the neighborhood. I've been through the back alleys, knew where certain people live. While I was walking down Hydraulic, I met a young boy and asked him if he ID some pictures. Kind of as a rust, I guess, or roost, as you call it, and kind of feel it out. And saw where he went. And I went to another address and knocked on the door. Nobody opened the door, so I just noticed where he went and went to that house, and we went from there.
Now, she was very adamant about not letting him come inside, but he just kind of shoves his way in. He pulls out his .22 and tells Shirley, I have a sexual fantasy problem, and I'm going to tie you up, have sex with you, take pictures, and then I'm going to let you all go about your day. What he does next is take the boys into the bathroom, locks the door, and throws a bunch of toys in there. This image right here is of the bathroom, how detectives found it. You can see there's a bed sheet, like a blanket there, and he's just like, here, go play with that. Well, spend time with your mom type of shit.
I told Mrs. Diane that I had a problem with sexual fantasies, that I was going to tie her up, and that I might have to tie the kids up, and if she would cooperate with me at that time. We went back. She was extremely nervous. I think she even smoked a cigarette. And then we went back to one of the back areas of the porch, explained to her that I had done this before. And I think at that point in time, I think she was sick because she had her night robe on. And I think if I remember right, she had been sick. And I think she came out of the bedroom when I went in the house. So anyway, we went back to her bedroom, and I proceeded to tie the kids up, and they started crying and got real upset. So I said, oh, this is not going to work. So we moved them to the bathroom. She helped me, and then I tied the doors shut. We put some toys and blankets and odds and ends in there for the kids, make them as comfortable as we could. We tied one of the bathroom doors shut so they couldn't open it, and she went back and helped me shove the bed up against the other bathroom door.
Now, Shirley Vian, the whole time, said, we got the flu. Get out of here. We're really sick. And it's like he didn't care because he already missed his target.
Right.
And usually he does have backup targets, backup projects. But this was not one of them. This was a random knock at a door. I mean, this could have gone any way.
Right.
I mean, she could have had grown-up sons in there,
Yeah.
I mean, this could have went another way quick.
I mean, he also clearly didn't care about catching the flu either.
I wonder if he caught it afterwards.
All right. This is from the BTK book.
He stripped off the woman's clothes. Oh, I am so sick, she said. He wrapped electrical tape around her forearms and calves. Rader tied her wrists with cord in a nylon stocking, then tied her ankles with cord. In the bathroom, the children were screaming, pounding on the door. Leave my mother alone! Leave my mother alone! Get out of here, Stephen yelled. I'm going to break out of here. I don't think you want to, Rader shouted back. I'll blow your head off.
This photo right here shows you exactly how he would bind his victims. This is of Shirley right here. And I'm putting this on talkmore.com. This was a hard photo to find.
Ooh.
All right, do you see the nylon stockings?
Yes.
That is what he binded her with. But first he used electrical tape, as you can see here, how it's kind of rushed. He had put that on first. Mm-hmm. You kind of see. Mm-hmm. And then he used the pantyhose, and then you finally see the nylon. So this is her hands tied behind her back. Okay, so this is the actual crime scene photo you're looking at of her.
Yikes.
Now, you got to remember, the whole time he was telling her, I'm just going to take pictures of you and have sex with you, and I'm going to leave. But, of course, that was not his intention whatsoever. Shirley actually vomited on the floor because she has the flu.
Yep.
Right.
Been there, girl.
The kids are banging on the bathroom door, screaming. He walks to the kitchen, pours a glass of water, and gives it to Shirley. It's one of his things. Remember when he gave the pillow to the father, the Otero father?
Yep.
Same thing. He's comforting the victim. She drinks it. As soon as she finishes the water, he pulls out that plastic bag and puts it around her head and then ties the cord to the bed.
And then I proceeded to tie her up. She got sick, threw up, got her a glass of water, comforted her a little bit, and then I went ahead and tied her up, and then put a bag over her head and strangled her.
All right. Was this a plastic bag also?
Yes, sir. I think it was, but I could be wrong on that.
Okay, you put a bag.
It was something. I'm sure it was a plastic bag. Yeah.
You say you put a bag over her head and strangled her. What did you strangle her with?
I think on that I had tied her legs to the bedpost and worked up with the rope all the way up, and then what I had left over I looped over her neck.
All right, so you used this rope to strangle her.
Yes, I think it's the same one that I tied her body with.
Now, this is one of those knots where I feel like police should have kind of figured some stuff out, but the knot was rigged, so as she struggled, it tightened. So basically, she killed herself from trying to get out.
Wow.
You know, I know that sounds morbid, but I mean, she would have probably died anyway because it was cutting off her air, but it did get tighter when she moved around. I think that's a slip knot, what a slip knot is. I'm not sure, so don't 100% quote me on that. I couldn't actually find what knot it was. But the children actually could hear the mother as she was dying.
What happened then?
Well, the kids were really banging on the door, hollering and screaming, and then the telephone rang, and they had talked about earlier that the neighbor was going to check on them, so I cleaned everything up real quick and got out of there, left, and went back into my car.
Now, he leaves. So this wasn't a sexual thing at all. This was just
Really?
just killing her for no reason. This was just a senseless murder. What you're reading now is from the Salina Journal, Friday, March 18th, 1977.
2 murders probed at Wichita. The body of a young man in his 20s was found in a field Friday morning, the victim of the city's second killing in as many days. The body of a young woman was found Thursday on a bed in her home. She had been bound in a plastic bag tied over her head. Police said the man found today was known to some officers but had no criminal record. His name was not immediately released. The body, covered with blood from a apparent stab wound to the back, was discovered by a policeman who was driving along a gravel road. Police had no tangible leads in the death of the 26-year-old woman.
All right, so what do you notice about that article?
Where did that guy come from?
The reason that guy is in there is because the detectives didn't link this to BTK.
Really?
At all.
They thought those two were linked?
This was not a link to the BTK. For whatever reason, they didn't link it.
Oh, that
That's
must have
why
pissed
the
him
other
off.
guy, which BTK did not kill, the body of a young man in his 20s was found in a field. They thought that was linked to Shirley Vian. They thought those were linked.
Did she know the guy?
No, she didn't know the guy. It's just, this
Police
was the first
ineptitude.
news of it coming out.
Right.
But they didn't actually link it to BTK. That's why I put this article in there. It kind of shows you, number one, that there were no linkages made. And number two, you see this coming out and then BTK is like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
I did this murder. Where's my credit?
Right.
Type of
Did
shit.
he write another letter when he saw that?
Yeah, he wrote another letter. See, BTK wasn't getting the fame that he wanted to get. He thought he would be a lot more famous in the media and stuff like that, and he just was not getting it at all. So on January 31st, 1978, he sends a poem?
Yep.
He sends a poem to the Wichita Eagle. Now, it came on an index card, and this is what it said.
Surely locks, wilt thou be mine? Thou shalt not scream, nor yet fee the line, but lay on cushion and think of me in death, and how it's going to be. BTK, poem for Fox Next.
December 8th, 1977, we're going to 843 South Pershing Street. Now, he tells his wife that he's going to the WSU library all night because he has a term paper, which is true. He really did have a term paper to finish. But also, he had a new project. This is Nancy Fox right here, 25 years old. She works at Hellsberg Jewelers in the mall. She was also a full-time secretary at an architectural firm. She played flute and sang in the choir of her Baptist church. So this was a project that he was following for a few weeks. He goes to her house on Pershing Street. What does he do before entering the house at first?
Shows
Cuts the
her
phone line.
He cuts the phone line. He breaks the window, and then he gets into the kitchen and he pours himself a glass of water. He had knocked, but she didn't come to the door. She wasn't home. He goes into the kitchen, and as he's drinking a glass of water, she walks in. This is the communication between BTK and Nancy Fox.
Get out of my house.
Nancy had just come in with her coat on, carrying her purse. She stepped to grab the telephone.
I'm going to call the police.
That won't do you any good. I cut the line.
He moved toward her, showed her his gun.
What are you in my house for?
She had spunk. He liked that. She did not even look nervous.
What are you going to do? What's going on here?
I'm a bad guy. I want sex. I have to tie you up to take pictures.
Get out of here.
No.
You need to get out of here right now.
No. This is going to happen.
You're sick.
Yes, I'm sick. But this is the way it's going to be.
She glared at him. She took off her coat, a white parka, and folded it onto the couch. She was wearing a pink sweater.
I need a cigarette.
She lit one, watching him. He dumped her purse onto the kitchen table and took some trophies. He found her driver's license. He talked to disarm her, telling the same story with variations that he had told Oteros, the Brights, Shirley Vian. He had a sexual problem, but he wasn't really a bad guy. She would be all right. And now she faced him squarely, or so he would remember.
Let's just get this over with so I can call the police.
He agreed.
I need to go to the bathroom.
He looked in the bathroom, made sure there wasn't a sharp object she could turn into a weapon.
Okay, make sure you come back with most of your clothes off.
He blocked open the bathroom door with a piece of cloth, then sat on her bed to wait. He looked around in admiration. Clothes, closet, jewelry kit, everything was neat. When she came out of the bathroom, she was still wearing her pink sweater, her bra, and purple panties. She saw he was holding handcuffs.
What's that about?
This is part of my deal. It's what makes it happen for me.
Why are you wearing gloves?
I'm wanted in other states, and I don't want to leave any prints.
This is ridiculous. This is bullshit.
She kept talking, but he barely listened. He pulled her hands behind her, fastened the cuffs on her wrists, and made her lie face down on the bed. He got on top of her. He was half undressed himself by then, hoping this would convey the lie that he intended to rape her. He pulled down her panties.
Has your boyfriend ever had sex with you in the butt?
He said it to deceive. He did not really want anal sex. She did not answer. She was gagged now. He took off his leather belt and looped it around her ankles. He found that he had an erection already. He suddenly pulled the belt off her ankles, slipped it around her throat and yanked it tight, pressing down with one hand where the belt went through the buckle and pulling the belt with his other hand. Nancy thrashed under him, found his scrotum with her handcuffed hands, and dug her fingers into him. It hurt, but he liked it.
Oh, I was going to say good for you, girl, but damn, that's...
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
So she grabs his scrotum and he likes it. BTK gags her, ties her up, and then gets right next to her ear, like he's going to whisper a secret in her ear. And he says, quote, "I'm wanted. I killed the Oteros. I killed Shirley Vian. I'm BTK, and you're next." And then he masturbated in her nightgown as she was dying.
You will find a homicide at Suite 43, South Pershing.
Okay, so let me kind of narrate what this is. This is a 911 call made by BTK. He says, "You will find a homicide at 843 Pershing. The victim is Nancy Fox."
Nancy Fox. I'm sorry, sir, I can't understand you. What is the address? 843 South Pershing.
I know it's hard to hear, but the dispatcher says, "I'm sorry, sir, I can't hear you. What is the address?" And another dispatcher speaks up that was listening in and said, "I think he said 843 Pershing." And then BTK responds, "That is correct." This is from his daughter.
Decades later, Dad commented about a gap in murders that began after my brother's birth, saying, "We were now a family. With a job and baby, I got busy." Dad continued to stalk potential victims, though, and in March 1977, Dad murdered Shirley Vian Relford, a mom to 3 young children. In December 1977, when my mom was 3 months pregnant with me, Dad murdered 25-year-old Nancy Fox. My dad was raising children, and yet he chose to take another mother away from her own children. He was about to have a daughter, yet he took 2 more daughters away from their families.
Here's a couple more things about Nancy Fox. Now, this is the daughter's account, and Nicole's reading directly from her book. And the book is called A Serial Killer's Daughter.
Dad murdered Nancy Fox when Mom was 3 months pregnant with me. Dad murdered part of a family, a father, mother, and 2 children, orphaning 3 children. Dad murdered 3 mothers in front of their children, daughters, sisters, mothers, grandmothers. 7 families destroyed, and my family too.
See, reading it in that way makes me even more angry than I already am.
That's why I'm pulling those certain passages that she has written in her book so you can kind of see.
Yeah, of like the killer's family suffers, and we talked about this once when our very good friend and Taco Supremo Chuck had us do his story about his brother who is convicted of murder, that there is a serious issue with understanding what families of the actual killers are going through.
Right.
Totally different from families of victims, but it's complicated.
It is.
Big shout out to Chuck. He became one of our really good friends. As Nicole was talking about, I remember Chuck telling me that when he was interviewed by the media, he was getting kind of the guilty stare, if you will, almost as he was associated with the murder.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what he was talking about. He is also a victim. And I never saw that until he explained it like that when we did his story. So big shout out to you, Chuck. We love you. He would also send physical things to the media. What murder does this remind you of right here? This is what you're looking at. Explain what you're looking at, Nicole.
It's a PVC is that an elbow pipe?
Yeah,
Elbow? It's an elbow
joint pipe?
a PVC pipe, yeah.
And it also has a Barbie doll, and it's a brunette Barbie doll, by the way.
It reminds me of the one where he kept the kids in the bathroom because of the plumbing piece.
But she's tied up
Which
with
victim is this?
Maybe Josie, because it's an upside down J. Josie Otero.
the last one, the most recent one.
This victim right here you're looking at, and he sent a few of these types of things. This is Josephine Otero. You see the purple blouse she was wearing. She's not wearing any pants. You see that he had took a Sharpie to her pubic area.
I was going to ask about that.
This is a Barbie doll, and she has a gag in her mouth and a rope. It's a hemp rope tied up, and her legs are also tied. A lot of times, the media would almost throw out the evidence. And like I read in the book, they get about 700 pieces of mail a day, and they get a lot of bullshit from crackpots or whoever. So when that poem came in, they thought it was just another crazy person. But one thing I forgot to mention about that poem, if we could go back and look at the photo one more time, and I can't believe I forgot to mention this, but he actually signed it BTK, and you can barely see it.
That's really weird that he drew pubic hair on a Barbie doll.
Yeah. Also, like
why not just leave it as is and keep her pants off?
Okay, so this is the signature.
Ah.
You see a BTK.
oh yes,
so
I
he has
do.
the breast.
Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
the breast, and then T right here, and then K. So what does this remind you of? If you think about it?
Chinese script.
No, it reminds you of this, right? So
Zodiac.
He's,
Zodiac?
the Zodiac. He's trying to make his own symbol, and it's actually really kind of cool because it's BTK.
And
I'm not cool, but you know what I'm saying. It's very
titties.
creative
I mean,
how he did that.
I don't think.
He's
I mean, when you put
trying.
it when you put it that way, as opposed to, it does look like a Chinese caricature.
it does.
Now, this is the police chief, Chief Lemunyon. He's mentioned numerous times. He's the one that kind of ran this case. This is an interview that he did. Now, I'm not sure what station this is because there's no branding or whatever. But it's really interesting to know that he decided to try a tactic that has never been done before, and that's subliminal messaging. Before I play this clip and you guys see the subliminal message, because it slows it down and you can actually see it, you guys have to understand that one of the leads that they had, one of the roads that the detectives went down was that the BTK mostly killed females who wore glasses. Now that
Really?
is completely inaccurate.
Oh.
You know, maybe subconsciously he felt sexually attracted to women with glasses. But the fact that they used the glasses in the subliminal message is very interesting. And this is one of those things in true crime that it's just a gem to see, because it's the first time it's ever happened. And of course, it didn't work at all. Also understand that the police chief and the detectives, they couldn't call BTK on the phone or have a conversation through letters. They had to communicate via the newspapers, and they put a lot of ads out in the personal section. A lot of things only the BTK would understand. And they were trying to probe him to call in to the police chief. Now, none of this worked, but you can be assured that the BTK did see all of this because, as you saw, he loved the media attention. So this is the subliminal message. It's very, very interesting.
See any pattern to BTK's conduct?
We have an individual who apparently has the uncontrollable desire to kill at times.
Did you see that flash by any chance?
Yes.
Did y'all see that?
I
Just a
did.
flash.
Okay, they'll show it in a second. Here's what it said. And I'll put this video on talkmurder.com.
Now called the chief.
So you see glasses there because they thought that he was picking women with only glasses.
Huh.
And then the glasses look like a bee.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah,
And
I
it says,
didn't notice
now
that.
call the chief. They wanted to develop a direct line of contact with the BTK. And this is
Interesting.
how they wanted to do it. They wanted him to call the chief directly. You know, because I don't know if you remember in the first episode I talked about they had put out that ad in that newspaper that we can help you. You need help. You're obviously, you're obviously seriously deranged.
Like they wanted to help him out.
They
but
wanted to help him, but they just wanted to nab him. So you see that call the chief. That was flashed really quick. I think that's extremely interesting because I do believe subliminal messaging works. Because I mean, look at it's not subliminal, I know, but product placement in movies. You remember
Sure.
we saw that
Right.
Whopper that the Iron Man was eating,
Sure did.
and then we went to get a Whopper.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was extremely interesting. That's kind of how they're running down these leads.
Right.
Let's move on now. About 7 years down the road. Now we're going to 1985. Okay, he's a lot older now. Remember that last murder I talked about with Nancy Fox happened in 1977.
Yeah.
That was the
Okay.
year
A
his
long
daughter was
time.
born, isn't it?
Yep.
So now he's kind of getting an old man, and you can really see him, I don't know, getting older because he gets lazier.
He's losing his hair.
He's losing his mojo, if you will. So now we're going to April 26, 1985. He's getting a lot older, okay? And the victim we're talking about lives 6 doors down from him.
Mm-hmm.
That's
his neighbor. It's too
his
close.
neighbor.
On the same block.
Too
yeah.
He's too
close.
close, which means he's getting sloppy. And this is how killers
Desperate.
get caught.
Yeah,
Desperate.
because
Now, this
people
is
are
19...
gonna. A good detective would ask all of the neighbors on the block what happened.
Can you tell me what occurred on that day?
Well, actually, kind of like the others, she was chosen. I went through the different phases, stalking phase, and since she lived down the street from me, I could watch the coming and going quite easily.
This is 1985, 6 doors down from Dennis Rader. He starts to get lazy. This is April 26th through April 27th.
And that's a big gap from his last murder.
Yeah, it's about 7 years, 7 or 8 years. I can't really count because I don't know math. But his last murder was 1977. This is 1985. This is called Project Cookie. Does anyone want to take a guess what this means?
Girl Scouts.
Close.
Coochie.
Remember, he was a Boy Scout. Continue on the line of a Boy Scout, but also knowing that his son is a Cub Scout right now. His young son, his only son, is a Cub Scout. He names it Project Cookie because at the time of this murder, he was on a Cub Scout outing with his son at Camp Tawakonee. Okay, this is a overnight.
Does he have no shame?
This is an overnight stay, setting tents up, campfires, ooh, I got a scary story to tell you after we light up these s'mores.
It was a dark and stormy night.
So he is out there with all of these boys. Guess what? Showing them how to tie slip knots. And if you tie this up, and if they struggle, then they'll kill themselves. He is teaching these boys how to do knots. He is at the Camp Tawakoni with his son, and he gets an urge. After the tents were set up, Dennis Rader, the BTK, says to the other scout leaders, because he's a scout leader as well, that he has a headache and he needs to go to bed early. Now, this is what he does. He drives to a gas station. He changes out of his Boy Scout uniform. And I'd like to quickly mention that a cop did ask him, what are you doing? What are you doing here? And then he said, I'm a Boy Scout. I'm just changing into these dark clothes. And the cop didn't ask anything further. But if he would have looked in the trunk, he would have found what Dennis Rader calls his, quote, hit kit.
Was this a kit that you had prepared?
Yeah, yes, I called my hit kit.
He then goes to a bowling alley, and this is kind of elaborate why he did this, but I think it's very interesting. He goes to a bowling alley. He orders one beer. He pours that beer on his shirt. He then calls a cab, an Uber, to pick him up and take him to the victim's home, which is...
Who?
His neighbor.
His neighbor, 6 doors down.
Ooh.
Now, the reason he did this with the whole beer, why do you think he did that?
So that he had an excuse to ask her for a towel.
Or an excuse to leave the bowling alley?
This is from the BTK book, Nicole, if you can read this.
He slurred his speech to fool the driver. If this ride ever turned up in an investigation, the cabbie would remember only that he was a drunken bowler in dark clothes, and not the scout dad who slept in a tent at Taiwakoni, 20 miles to the east. If asked, the scout dads would say that he stayed in the tent all night with a headache.
Before that, I dressed until I had some other clothes on, changed clothes. I went to the bowling alley, went in there, the precincts of bowling, called a taxi, had a taxi take me out to Park City, had my kit with me as a bowling bag.
All right, that was Park City in Sedgwick County,
Yes, sir.
Kansas.
Uh-huh.
All right, you had the taxi take you to Park City. What happened then?
There, I pretended that I was a little drunk. I just took some beer and forced it around my mouth, and the guy could probably smell the alcohol on me. Told him to let me out so I could get some fresh air, and I walked from where the taxi let me out over to her house.
His neighbor, her name is Maureen Hedge. He kills her in her home, basically the same routine.
So I very carefully snuck into the house, kind of like a cat burglar. And after checking the house, she wasn't there. So about that time, the doors rattled. So I went back to one of the bedrooms and hid back there in one of the bedrooms. She came in with a male visitor. They were there for maybe an hour or so. He left. I waited till wee hours in the morning and then proceeded to sneak into her bedroom and flip the lights on what looked like, or I think the bathroom lights. I didn't want to flip her lights on, and she screamed, and I jumped on the bed and strangled her manually.
He kills her, strangles her. He then wraps her in her own bed sheets and puts her in the trunk of his own car. And then he does something that he has never done. Oh, what did I just say?
He puts her in the trunk of his car.
Which is completely different than his
He's
MO.
never taken a
He has
body
never
away.
taken a body outside of their own home.
Ooh.
So right now he's breaking his MO. And I believe he's doing this because he does read a lot of detective magazines.
Eventually moved her to the trunk of the car. Took the car over to Christ Lutheran Church. This is with the older church. And took some pictures of her.
He drives the dead body in the trunk to his Lutheran church. If you want to read this, Nicole.
In the church, he played God, controlled her, strapped her high heels to her cold feet, posed her, bound body in lewd positions, and took photographs he could savor later. Then he took her to the country and dumped her.
Oh, he never took photos before. That's new.
True.
So Dennis Rader has a key to the church because he's very high up in the congregation. So it's just so fucked up that he took her at the church and did his deviance at the church.
Yeah,
and
it is fucked up.
And in fact, in another murder, he takes evidence, driver's license, jewelry, and dumps it at the church as well. It kind of shows you that maybe he's really not a big Christian. 9 days later, in a wet ditch on 53rd Street north of northwest of Wichita, animals have nearly destroyed the remains, but they had found her body. Her name was Maureen Hedge, and that was a BTK victim. That was 1985. Now, here's for your cooling down period. The next one is in 1991. And the reason I'm doing this one is because it is the very last murder he has ever done.
Really?
And the MO is completely different.
Even
Now-
the last one was different.
Yeah.
January 18th, 1991. Dolores Davis. This is Project Dogside. The reason he named it that is because she had a dog kennel a little bit north of her property, you know. She lived at 6226 North Hillside and was a mile away from his home. So he is getting extremely lazy. And I'd like to say, maybe for future detectives, if a killer gets older like this, you know, it's interesting to see, are they all lazier like that? Will they all start to go closer to home? You know, you remember Israel Keys? He would
That's
kill
right.
he
The
would,
neighbor.
Exactly. He killed, well, not his neighbor, but he killed someone local in Anchorage, Alaska, the one that worked at the coffee drive-in.
Yeah, and then kept them in his shed with
And
their
that was
eyes
his
taped open.
undoing, but he got lazy, and that's why. So,
I think it has to do with the number of people that he killed that he got away with, where he thought
Yeah,
they
exactly.
could go closer to home.
yeah, and he thinks that he can just get away with it.
Part laziness, but part
I also
got
think
away with it.
It has to do with the fact that they really don't give a fuck. Who cares about anything about anyone? They're just going to do whatever they want anyway, since they've gotten away with it for so long.
He's on another Boy Scout trip. This is January 18th, 1991. Now, his son is no longer a Cub Scout. He's now a Boy Scout.
Oh.
And they're on the trip, tents up. You know, when I was young and I was sitting here in the Boy Scouts tying knots and just sitting by the fire and wanking it with each other and cornholing each other, you know, talking like that. And then all of a sudden, hey guys, I'm sorry, but I'm going to need some more supplies for this fire. I need to get this fire going. I need to go to the store and get some supplies. That was his ruse to get out of there. This is Dolores Davis right here. Do you want to guess how old she is?
68.
She's
63?
62 years old. So then again, BTK is now a lot older, but this is the oldest victim that he's had, a 62-year-old. He drives out and he brazenly throws a cinder block through Dolores Davis's home. Now, this is the actual scene in her home. So you can see how brazen this is. You see the cinder block right here by the TV.
Yeah, it looks
And
like
it goes through the window right here. You see the glass on the floor?
Yeah, it looks like it's like a sliding door type of situation.
He goes back to the campsite because his son's there and he's the Boy Scout leader. He spends the day there, but he's got this itch that he needs to scratch. It's like, man, you know, I had to rush. It was cold outside and I had to get back because they were wondering where I was at probably. I didn't get to do what I wanted to do with the body. And I had a bunch of plans. I wanted to do so much sexual stuff to the body. So he decides to make another excuse. Now he's got a headache. He goes back under the bridge the very next day and he revisits the body.
Rader finished dressing, drove out in the fog, found Dee's body, and took photos of her. Her breasts had deflated. Not very sexy, he thought, but he took photos anyway. He had brought something to pretty her up. His mask, made of heavy plastic, which he had painted red lips, black eyelashes, and eyebrows.
What? He was wearing a mask?
He put the mask on her.
No, he didn't put the mask. Well, yeah, he put the mask on her, but it was not found like this. Now, this is also a complete different MO. This is crazy. And he actually owned this mask for a while, as you'll see in a second. The body was actually found 13 days later, and it was found on 117th Street North. It was actually under a bridge, found by a boy walking his dog. It's kind of interesting because the dog kind of runs under the bridge, and then the boy's like, get out of there. It's probably snakes or raccoons or freaking, I don't know, a troll or whatever the fuck's under a bridge. Maybe that guy from Red Hot Chili Peppers. I don't know. But he says, come on out of there. And the dog just sits there and doesn't move because the body's there. Kind of a little interesting tidbit. Her body was there. This is 13 days later. The animals really got to her. If you want to read this is from the BTK book.
Sheriff's investigators photographed Dee's frozen body, diagrammed her location, and studied what they saw. Pantyhose tied to Dee's throat, wrists, and ankles. Animals had gnawed her.
Oof.
This is the crime scene photo of 62-year-old Dolores Davis. So you see she is under a bridge, you can tell, because it's shaded right here. And you see the light out here, so it is shaded. She's laying on the ground. Her face is completely mutilated. I believe this is some sort of cover. And you see the mask here on the side.
Yeah.
She's kind of stripped down naked. I believe there's a bathrobe kind of wrapped around her, and she's just kind of tossed there.
Yeah, I can't tell if she's laying on her stomach or on her back.
It's on her back.
That's how BTK
They've
left her.
blurred out her boobs.
Now, this is a completely different MO. Number one, it's not killed in the home. Number two, who uses a mask like this? I mean, go to talkmore.com. I'm putting these photos up there. The mask is very creepy. It's like that movie, The Strangers type of mask. This is the actual mask right here that I'm showing you guys right now.
Oh, yeah, I hate those masks.
And this is the mask in the held up in evidence right here.
Oh, yeah, that's just like it.
Now, like I said before,
I've never seen that movie, but I can imagine.
Now, like I said before, this is a mask that he actually owned. Okay, why would he own a mask like this?
So that he could disguise himself and or his victims?
What you're seeing right now is actual photos of BTK, Dennis Rader. He liked to cosplay a little bit. This is Dennis Rader.
What?
You see him standing on the bed, dressed up. He's got the bag over his head. He's playing bondage. You see him here.
Wait, that's him? Not his
that's
victims?
him. No, this is him. He has hung himself up, and this is him laying on the floor with the mask on.
I'm so confused.
Here's another photo of BTK right here. Go talkmore.com to see these. He's wearing a wig in this. He's got a mask on. He is playing the bondage role.
He's pretending to be a victim.
But who tied those knots for him?
He tied those knots. Who else would tie those knots?
On himself, so behind his back?
You think his wife's going to tie them damn things?
Well, who took that picture?
The cameras have those timers. This is him hanging himself up. Now, this is all him.
This is very elaborate.
This is himself doing this right now. This is kind of his sexual thing that he does. And this is him burying himself just like Dolores Davis.
Whoa.
See, he's in this shallow grave.
So he was pretending to be his own victims?
He's kind of shallow graved right here. He put some dirt on himself, kind of like if you're at the beach and you throw dirt on somebody or sand on somebody.
Do you think he did this and I didn't know that this was something that he did. Did he do this so that he seemed like he had more victims than he actually did?
No. These were only for him. This was found after he was arrested.
It was part of his own pleasure.
This was, you remember Colonel Williams?
Yes.
Russell Williams that was dressed up in all these panties and stuff. This was part of his sexual deviance, if you will.
Got it.
Like, he didn't want these to be public. He did send photos of his victims to the journalist, but he did not send these. These were found in his stash once he was arrested.
I mean, who am I to judge what turns people on? But at the same time, like, because this is sick.
I think this is the opportunity to judge.
Then I definitely will take that opportunity. That's fucking sick, bro.
Okay, so one of our listeners commented that Dennis Rader, BTK, was one of the most dumbest killers out there, and I'd have to agree. Reading his case, I don't know if he was really dumb or if he just really wanted to be caught. If you watch his testimonies and when he's in court and his communication with the media, and if you read his communication with the media and all the letters he sent, which I didn't even go through all the letters he sent, you can see almost a desperation for fame. It's 2005 when he gets caught. He is desperate because guess what? These new detectives are in there and BTK is like, I don't know, your dad saying, oh, yeah, you should listen to the Supremes or Daryl Oates or whoever his name is, or you'd really listen to Boston or the Eagles. You know, it's like, okay, Dad.
Man,
I mean,
fuck
you know,
the Eagles.
I'd rather listen to freaking Ari Grande, Little Boozy. I got my stereo on the XXX Tashi.
What are you trying to say?
I want to listen to Drake's new album, Pump the Bacon, all this stuff. I don't care about Daryl Oates, Dad. That's kind of what they were thinking about BTK. Who gives a shit about BTK? This is a guy that was killing in the 70s. All these new detectives were new. They're millennials. He really wanted fame. I'm not saying that he wanted to get caught, but he's a freaking idiot. He was actually caught trying to communicate with the media after he came out of, quote, retirement. He goes to Nicole's favorite place, a store that she loves more than anything else. And she'll guess it now because we're on the same wavelength.
Trader Joe's.
True, Dad. Yes.
She'll take one more guess and get it correct.
Whole Foods.
I have a feeling you're going to say Victoria's Secret.
When's the last time you've been to Victoria's Secrets?
December, when they were having a huge
Yeah, I was going to
underwear
say
sale.
December when we went shopping.
We got like 30 pairs of underwear for
We
like
went
$10.
to Victoria's Secret, Ulta, Bath and Body Works, and Old Navy, I think, is where we went.
It was amazing.
He dropped this cereal box off at Nicole's favorite
TD's?
store. No, not TD's, damn it.
looks like-
Home Depot. What the fuck? Home Depot. He was at Home Damn Depot.
I do love Home
the
Depot.
fuck? You go there every day.
I like Home Depot better than Lowe's.
Yes.
So he was caught on surveillance camera depositing a piece of evidence. He basically rolls up in his Jeep Grand Cherokee in the Home Depot parking lot and puts one of these media toys that he wants the media to see because he's coming out of retirement in someone's truck. It's like he didn't know that the freaking Home Depot would have CCTV in this 2004. Like everywhere in the fucking world has that shit, right?
I do love Home Depot. You're right.
They know now that he drives a Jeep Grand Cherokee, a red one. That's what they know. They couldn't see his face because, CCTV, for some reason, even nowadays, is still grainy as shit.
Pixelated.
Well, it's better in Britain than it is. They have it everywhere in the UK.
It's like every freaking street corner.
I'm right, but in America,
1984, man.
So you can see the box here. He signed it, BTK, pre
is that
with a
Special
dash.
K?
Is that Nancy Grace?
Yeah, I think that is Nancy Grace, yeah. I wonder if she's...
Nancy Grace doing on the Special
that's
K
so
box.
fucking ironic.
I wonder if she's listened to our podcast. She's probably like, I do not approve
Well,
of this.
I mean, HLN official does follow us on Instagram, so maybe she has heard of us. Who knows?
Nancy.
We know that My Favorite Murder has, or at least someone on their team has.
That was his first downfall, is showing up in his own car and getting on CCTV. The next is even stupider. You literally won't believe what he did. He asked the detective if a floppy disk can be traced because he wants to send them pictures of his victims. And
But we weren't even using floppy disks in 2005. That was like 1997 to 2002 technology.
True.
All right, can you read this, Nicole? This was actually writing that was on the box left at Home Depot. He was trying to communicate with the detectives. Now, keep in mind, this is 30 plus years later. His first murder was in 74. This is 2005. Let me put it this way. He is old news. He's unimportant. Nobody gives a shit. Everyone cares about every other serial killer but him. He's getting pissed off. And like you said earlier, it's probably because he's trying too hard. Go ahead and read this, Nicole. This was on the Special K box. Start here.
Much of the writing in the Special K box was the usual egocentric material. He liked to call himself Rex, Latin for king, for example. But the note labeled "Communication, it will be okay. Run it for a few days in case I'm out of town, etc. I will try a floppy for a test run sometime in the near future, February or March." Was he serious?
So he puts out an ad in the Wichita paper, the Wichita Eagle. It says Adult Talk, contact Rex Productions.
New website. Come check it out.
So he's
Ooh, a
actually
website.
communicating through the classified ads in the paper. Now, he actually asked detectives, he says, quote, be honest. If I give you a floppy disk, is it traceable? Quote, be honest. Now, the detectives thought he was fucking with him, but he wasn't. He was really asking the detectives if a floppy disk is traceable. And yes, it is. It's just like a photo. If you snap a digital photo, it is traceable. There's information in the digital photo. Every time you snap an iPhone photo, if you send it to somebody or you take a picture and the FBI looks at it, even though it comes from an anonymous source, they can look at the metadata. It's what they call metadata. It's the location and the timestamp and all that stuff. Just like a floppy disk. It is traceable. But the detective said, no, it's not traceable. Go ahead and send us all your crime scene pics through a floppy disk, you fucking idiot. And
he did
guess
it.
what? He did.
Well, he's a dumbass.
And guess what it said? The detectives take the floppy disk, and yes, it's full of crime scene photos. They do the right-click thing under properties, just like any folder nowadays. And in plain letters, it reads Dennis.
Raider.
No, it reads just Dennis, his first name, and then where it came from was the Christ Lutheran Church.
Where he was a
And it
prominent
was
member.
used at the Park City Community Public Library. It literally gave his name, Dennis, his first name, and his exact location of the church. They have him now. Plus, they have him driving that Jeep Grand Cherokee. He immediately gets caught. I mean, this is it for him. Within a few days, search warrant, they nab him right there. And he basically goes willingly. And he does a tell-all, everything you want to know. He pleads guilty to 10 counts of murder. And now the sad thing about this, well, I don't know if you want to call it sad, but at the time of the murders, Kansas did not have a death penalty. So therefore, he cannot be put to death, because he committed the murders within the years of not having a death penalty. He's still alive and in prison, and he'll be there till the day he dies.
He's still alive today?
Yeah, he's still alive, and he still communicates with his daughter. I was reading a little bit in her book where she had written him letters, and he said he's getting more into the Bible and starting to be more of a Christian.
He's got to be at least in the 70s?
Oh, yeah, he's old as shit. He's like 70, 80.
Wow. I mean, he really lost it at the end there.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button on whatever podcasting app you use. If you like this story, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you're absolutely obsessed with this podcast and want to become our strangler, go to talkmurder.com/join. Become a Talko Supremo. Get a badass t-shirt, stickers, swag, a lot of love. Shout it out all over the place. Tell me what story you want me to do. I'll research it and I'll put it on a floppy disk. My name is John, here with Jen and Nicole. And until next time, good night, you lovely, lovely people.